the world was getting way too tactical, and that's where we felt that, like all these short-term distribution-based, purely ROI-based and performance-based things were getting undue importance. So what happened when you're thinking about it strategically, you understand that for anything, you need to create desire, you need to distribute the desire. If you don't do both of that, you will never be able to build a sustainable business. So my point is that the role of media and the media business would not be just to remember it, but also to point this truth to business community. And therefore, in the end, I want to say, never forget the idea of this common man who has always questioned holy cows and come back to the basic tenets of, like good principles and good methods of operating, whether it's in business or in society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think you have given some new idea on how this trust should be earned. It has to be earned. I think it is not you can do that. And also you have given new thought of ROI, return of ideas. I think that's very good. I think industry also, of course, as you said, media need advertisement support. But everybody was uncertain, going through uncertain period. So at that time, nobody thinking whether I have to save money to give salaries and other things. I think that was very important. So no, they don't know how the business will go, but the pandemic go on for more years, 3 years, 4 years. I think that is the reason. Now I think all these things coming back. I think you will have good time, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Now, I would request Mr. The next speaker is Tarun Roy, Chairman, Group CEO, South Asia, Underman Thompson. Tarun Roy has over 3 decades of experience in marketing, media, and communication industry, and he is currently Chairman and Group CEO of Underman Thompson, South Asia. As the Chairman and CEO, Tarun is responsible for operation in 3 countries, 7 cities, and 4 companies. The companies he leads work in the space of advertising, content production, digital communication, design, and technology. Mr. Tarun was identified as Asia Most People CEO HR at the HR Excellence Award Singapore. He is an economic graduate and holds an MBA degree. He also an alumnus of London School of Economics. Over to Mr. Tarun Roy.
Yep. Thank you very much. And always difficult to follow Partha with his lovely slides and R.K. Lakshman's common man. But I don't have any slides to share, so no technology hitches from my side. First, it's 10 minutes, so I thought I'll just kind of talk through. First, I was very surprised when Shiva got in touch and asked me to speak at a media unconference as this one is. It's been a long time since I was in media, but then I thought it's interesting because I theoretically have 2 different perspectives. One is when I was in media, and that was an inside-out perspective. And then since the last 7 years, I have an outside-in perspective from not too far away, because I always say that, between the message and the medium, there is only different sides of the fence. I went from advertising to media, which was the message to the medium, and then I came back to advertising, and it was the medium to the message. So I'm happy to share at least some of my views. And I think Partha has already talked about some stuff that I'm going to corroborate, or what I believe in. Even the topic of building a sustainable media business post-COVID, I found interesting. And the reason I'm saying it's interesting is because in the middle of the pandemic last year, I wrote an article questioning whether the pandemic was a matchstick or was it an accelerant? By this, I meant that, we kept using the word unprecedented all through last year. I think it was the most used word last year. And it meant that we were witnessing things that we had not witnessed before. But my point was that maybe it was not a matchstick which was lighting new fires, unprecedented new fires, but more like an accelerant which then poured over small fires which already existed, just made them mainstream, made them bigger. In fact, you can imagine the fire to be trends. And my point was the trends were already there. Even in 2019, global economies, including India's, were facing headwinds. The process of deglobalization had already started with Brexit as its flag bearer. The America-China trade war had already begun. In our everyday work life, technology was available to us. I mean, in our office, we had blue jeans. In fact, Zoom, at the end of, or in December of 2019, had 10 million daily participants. So it was there. But by April 2020, in just 4 months, they had reached 300 million. So it was the accelerant which was being poured over something that was already available. Now we use all these, technology opportunities to do a conference like this, but it was there in 2019 before the pandemic. So my point was that the trends were already there. Some things were new. In fact, frankly, even the pandemic, even COVID was not really new. We had sufficient warnings. We had the bovine flu, we had the swine flu, we had the bird flu, which was actually called SARS in any case. So we had enough warning, but the scale of the pandemic, which we saw during COVID, was very different. So it was just a much bigger pandemic rather than the earlier epidemics. But even the virus was not something new. And similarly, the trends in marketing and advertising, and especially media over the last 20 months, are not really new. They just became bigger, more noticeable. Even in 2019, in terms of media spends, TV was growing at 9%, print was down by 5%, and digital was growing at 30%. And in 2020, the trend just continued, became sharper, with print falling by 43%. And 2021, already, growth is back, and it's growing at 23%, albeit on a smaller base. But digital is again growing at 28%, and TV is growing at 18%, and print is recovering, as Partha just said. So it's certainly a question of not that these trends were not visible to us, except the pandemic acted as an accelerant and just made these trends more visible. The other point I am fond of making, and since we are in the business of advertising, we have got our clients who are talking to all corners of India and Indians. I talk about many Indias. India is not homogeneous. No country is homogeneous, but India is very, very, very diverse. And so are their different, and they differ in terms of the media consumption habits. So to add to what Partha said about print and traditional media, I strongly believe, and I have believed this even when I was in media myself in 2015, that no media is disappearing anytime soon. Traditional media, let's take an example of TV. TV ad spends are still 41% of the total, and that's huge. I know for a fact that some of our largest FMCG clients, including multinational FMCG clients, some of the biggest spenders, 70 to 85% of their budgets are spent on television. And this is despite the fact that they are spending on digital, they are spending and focusing on digital. Look at IPL advertising. Who's in IPL advertising? Mostly you will see actually digital-only brands who are using traditional media. And Partha is very familiar with the full-page wraparound ads, again used by digital media. And I always say that, there is huge headroom because India is still an under-branded and under-advertised country. So there is a lot of headroom for all media to grow. And again, when the VHS many years ago came about, that was supposed to kill cinema. TV was supposed to kill cinema too. The internet was supposed to kill television, but different media has different experiences. And you tell me, how do you replicate an experience of watching a live cricket match? People pay through their noses and sit through these IPL events, but that experience of a live sporting event cannot be replicated. So different media also has different experiences. You mentioned earlier that you had switched to e-papers. Well, I also switched to e-papers, but I can promise you, when the newspapers started falling at my doorstep once again, I was very quick to get back to newspapers. And of course, two of those newspapers are the Times of India and the Economic Times. But yet I continue with a couple of magazine and newspaper brands which I read on my tablet. So things will change, and things are going to change. Different media will grow at different rates, but no media, to my mind, is disappearing in India anytime soon, because they all have a role to play. Let's talk about the challenge and the opportunity of this new environment. First, let's talk about the opportunity. Again, in terms of media consumption, it's amazing how much media is being consumed, and it's changing at such a rapid pace. I was reading a report which says that in 2018, media consumption in India was 4 hours a day. And by next year, it is going to be 6 hours a day. So it's a 50% increase in just 4 years. And we again have a long way to go, because in US, it's double this. It's close to 10 hours a day is the media consumption. So there is a huge opportunity because people are consuming more media. And also, thanks to the mobile phone, media consumption is not limited to different day parts. It's not that I read my newspaper in the morning, then I listen to a radio in the car, and then come back and see appointment television at 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. in the evening. Now it's 24/7. So it's not just a question of increasing media consumption. It's being consumed through the day. And therefore, the opportunity is the media is still growing. There is a lot of headroom, and there is an opportunity to develop new revenue streams across platforms. And every opportunity has challenges. And I find, and including the business that I'm in currently in advertising, multiple platforms actually, for starter, means new set of competition. We are used to the kind of competition that we have been competing with for the past decades. But as you go out of your comfort zone into new areas where there are opportunities to develop new revenue streams, there is also new competition. Therefore, it means developing new capabilities. And it also means talent. And you have to get talent from other industries. It means developing new and monetizing new business models, and which is not very easy. And it actually sometimes means redefining the business you're in. I'll quickly take 2 minutes and talk very quickly about my experience, though dated, in media, which was in 2010. I was in the magazines business, lifestyle magazines, great fun, very, very interesting magazines and magazine publishing. The iPad was launched in 2010, and it was supposed to be the death knell of the printed magazine. But that didn't happen. Just like Kindle didn't kill physical books. Even today, I was very surprised. Even today, in India, for example, 5.6% people buy ebooks, but 28% people buy the printed, regular, hardbound or paperback printed book. Even in the developed world, in Germany, according to statistics, and these are pretty recent ones, 10% of the people buy ebooks, but 58% buy printed books. So even in terms of a Kindle versus a physical book, nothing changed. And similarly for magazines continue to sell. The iPad and e-magazines only added a new revenue stream. In fact, the mobile phone, suddenly we were contacted by Jio those days. This was before they had even launched, and they wanted to buy all our magazine content and give it free to their customers. You're welcome. My content is already produced. This just gives me more revenue. And it also helped us with the attention that the iPad and all the digital revenue streams opened up, it helped us diversify our revenue. Subscriptions were 30%, ad revenue was 40%, events and digital and online properties was adding another 30%. So therefore, when the industry was going from flat to negative, in the 7 years that I was in media, we were growing at 20% every year. So again, to me, there are huge amount of opportunities, and they have only increased. Similarly, currently where I am in advertising, when I joined in 2015, and again referring to traditional versus new media or non-traditional media, our split in terms of revenue was 90-10. 90% of our revenues were coming from traditional media and only 10% from digital and new media. Today, it's already 60-40, and this is only 6 years. And 60% of our revenues are from traditional media, but 40% are from the new media side. We used to do largely TVCs and print ads and some outdoor, but now we are doing web designing, app development, social media marketing, e-commerce, social commerce, marketing automation. We even have our own production studio. So again, the opportunities are only growing, except that we just have to change very quickly. We have to adapt very quickly and make sure that we use these opportunities that are coming up. And again, as we said, in the end, I'll just want to say that 2 years of tech adoption was compressed in 2 months at the beginning of the pandemic. Whether it was social commerce, certainly your grocers or your fruit wala, they were also on WhatsApp trying to conduct business. All your e-wallets, online payments suddenly boomed. And similarly, there are so many opportunities suddenly came up, but this wasn't as if it wasn't there earlier. And again, I'm saying opportunity is just not limited to new media. Overall spending, we talked about under-branded India. Well, that's changing. Old economy brands continue to be there, but look at the startup brands. You just have to go to Hotstar and see the IPL on Hotstar channel, and even mainline television. Every day there is a new brand, from edutech to cryptocurrency. Plus there is the IPO boom, and of course everything is turning into a unicorn if you have the Economic Times in the morning every day to read. In fact, one of the memes actually said that the new national animal of the country seems to be the unicorn. So again, there is a lot of money going around, lots of spending happening. The under-branded India seems to be getting over-branded very quickly. And all I know, and I say it from experience, even from advertising, things are changing so fast. The accelerant has actually opened up opportunities so quickly that experience or the past doesn't count for much. And as the famous or the cliched quote says, you can't drive forward, especially at the speed that we are driving now, looking at the rearview mirror. So unfortunately, there is not too much that we can bank on in terms of experience, and we just have to drive forward, make sure that we are adapting quickly enough to utilize all the opportunities. And lastly, Partha didn't mention it. It's the biggest cliche, content is king. But yes, I think people are chasing good content, and they are getting a bit agnostic about where they're getting good content from. So I just wanted to share this, that I truly believe that the pandemic has only accelerated trends that were visible, and the fact that all these changes are only opening up more opportunities, especially for media. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I think you completely changed the mood of the event. I think you are so substantial growth in everything. I think that's good for the country, good for the world. I think that's very good. And also you said post-COVID, very, very interesting. And look for more opportunities. You say digital is going from 10% to 40%. Everybody is hearing. Also India, there's 4 hours to 6 hours a day, people watching. I think that is very good. I think you, as you said, no, the Zoom. See, when I work from home, no, I never used to have, my secretary used to all make it. ready for the meeting. But now it's totally, I am doing it. I am learning. At my age, I am learning these things. That's good. I am a sitting mind. Previously, I used to dictate. That is the change I think brought this pandemic has brought in. Thank you so much, sir, for insightful thoughts. Now, I like to invite Mr. Vikram Chandra, founder, editor, G Technologies, to deliver his address. I think we are seeing you for so many years in the TV, sir. Probably 20 years. We have been watching you, and he is a founder of Editorgy Technology, a startup that seeks to transform video news through innovation, users experience using artificial intelligence. In his earlier avatar, Vikram was one of the best-known TV news anchor. He has been named the global leader for tomorrow by the World Economic Forum in Davos and has won the Indian Television Academy for the best anchor of the top show. He was educated at Oxford University and St. Stephen's College before attending the Mass Media Institute at Stanford University. Over to you, sir.
And I'm going to try very hard not to repeat any of the things that they have said and try and keep things slightly different. And perhaps one of the ways to do that is to talk about video, because that is something which I think, to take what Tarun is saying, that's one of the areas where existing trends have only got amplified and have got accelerated. And in particular, I'm going to talk a little bit about a business that I used to be in for 25 years before quitting it about 3 or 4 years ago to set up Editorgy, and that's television news. So first of all, on video, I mean, the trend that we were starting to see, which has only been accelerated, is this entire movement, which I think is now an inexorable trend, from cable and satellite linear television towards OTT and streaming. And to take off from the example that both of you referred to, yes, the experience of holding a newspaper in your hand, the experience of reading print, cannot entirely be replicated by reading something on a tablet or seeing it on a screen. It's not the same experience. From a tactile level, it's very different. But if you have a big screen and you're watching something on cable and satellite, or you're watching something on Amazon or Netflix or Hotstar, it's actually not a very different experience so long as your bandwidth is good enough. You can't really tell, am I watching this on cable and satellite, or am I watching this on Amazon Prime or Netflix? And during this period of the pandemic, and with data getting better and better, most people have made that switch without really missing where they are. And that's, in my view, throwing up, to my mind at least, it's an irreversible trend, because the sort of choice that you get now is much more, which is the reason why all the big players in cable and satellite TV are also moving to OTT, whether it is Star or Z or anybody else, they're all moving. Entertainment, if you anecdotally ask people around you, what are the serials that you're watching? What are the shows that you're watching? Where are you watching the movies that you're watching? Even anecdotally, you'll probably hear a lot of them are starting to talk about it being on an Amazon or a Z5 or a Hotstar or something like that, as opposed to being on traditional cable and satellite TV. And interestingly, why people who are, once you have your connected television, you have your Apple TV Plus or your Amazon Fire Stick, why then are you switching from HDMI 2 to go back to HDMI 1 to watch cable and satellite? Well, there are two reasons. Primarily, which you hear anecdotally, and these, as I said, these trends accelerating during the pandemic. One is to watch live sports, because you say, live sports, I have to watch it on traditional TV, or to watch television news, right? Those are the two reasons why you do it. Now, live sports, I think the justification is going to start going away very soon, because those same sporting matches are now available on Hotstar, or they're available on Sony Live, or they're available on something else. So you'll be able to watch live television on that as well. So that brings us to news, right? And video news in particular. You do have very good options in print. So I'm not going to go into that. The people are reading the newspapers, and by and large, the quality of that has been kept up. But if you ask people, and I've been asking people this question for 8 to 9 years, what about television news? What about video news? And By and large, every single conference that I have addressed for 8 to 9 years, and I ask people, what do you think of the quality of television news? How many of you think that the quality of television news has deteriorated and deteriorated very sharply? Every single person, every single time for 8 years has raised their hands and said, we think the quality of television news has deteriorated. So the only reason you're going to linear, to cable and satellite, is to watch TV news. And that is something that is admittedly not of the quality that it should be. So obviously there's a big opportunity in here somewhere, and there's a vacuum in here somewhere. So let's turn our question to why is it that television news is fundamentally broken? And to my mind, one of the reasons I took the decision to leave TV news and to try and set up an alternative to television news was because I fundamentally felt that it's tough to fix given the issues that there are in television news right now. And the issues are structural. In India, television news channels do not get subscription revenue. So you don't get distribution as a cost, it's not a revenue. So your entire costs have to be covered by advertising. Advertising is entirely driven by TRPs. And we know the issues in the TRP business. And let's set fraud and all those things aside for a moment. Just the sheer fact that there are only 40,000 boxes that are determining what 1.3 billion people are watching means that the TRP meters are not necessarily the best data or the best analytics to tell you what somebody's actually watching. You have virtually every single channel today saying we are number one. And you can keep arguing as to who's number one because the data is so thin, right? It's like how many people are actually watching an English news channel. You're probably extrapolating on the basis of 40 or 50 people meter in a country of 1.4 billion people to try and decide who's the leading person. And inexorably, what's happened is that to get TRPs, the only way you get that is by yelling and shouting and by being sensational, which is not necessarily the experience that everybody wants. So TRPs tell you that's what you've got to show people. But maybe that's not what everyone wants to watch, which is why there's this slight feeling of detachment from television news. And then other things have added to it, like bias. So when I was setting up Editor G, my real question came in, and this is the question that I believe the industry is going to try and find. It is a trend that had started, and as Taran was saying, it's a trend that's going to be accelerated. We're going to have to try and find the new form factors, the new user experiences, because while user experiences and many other things are all right in the digital world, the user experience for video news is not okay. Why is it that people are not consuming video news in digital formats? It's because the user experience is broken. Text is fine, e-papers are fine. You can read articles, select the link, read it, that's okay. But in video news, what are we doing? We're telling people, go and look at a bunch of video stories, tap on the video story that you want, and that one story will pop up, watch it for 30 seconds, and then shut that off and go off somewhere else. No one does that. So what's happening is that video news, you're stumbling upon video news and people are sending it to you on WhatsApp or Facebook or something like that. You're seeing pieces of video news and you're saying, oh, I'm being informed. You're not being informed because a lot of the video that is coming to you on WhatsApp or Facebook is either from an ideological echo chamber or a lot of it is fake news. And therefore you don't trust it. To Partha's point, that trust is the single most important thing. And you need to trust news even more than you trust anything else. And if your news is coming to you by somebody sending you a basic news story on WhatsApp, you have an issue. So at our level, what we try to do, we have just one solution. Other people will come up with another solution. At our solution, what we try to do is we said, okay, let's try and set up the sort of the Spotify of video news and information, if I could coin a phrase. So what we do is we create playlists. We do the stories ourselves. We curate it because I think curation is going to be important. You can't leave things entirely to algorithms. So we do select stories. We do 100, 150 stories ourselves. We string them together into playlists using AI. But very importantly, one of the learnings that we have, which I think the industry is going to probably end up following, is you can't leave things entirely to the algorithm, because the algorithm will keep on showing you stories that you have seen before or which you may have interest in. In news and information, by definition, you don't want to see things that you've already seen before. You want serendipity. You want to be well informed. You want to know what's happening today. And that means you may want to see a story today on something that has happened in North Korea, even if you've never been interested in North Korea. So human-machine hybrid systems, we've had to deploy them, and I suspect others in the industry are going to have to do that too. Is this work in progress? Yes. It is going to take time before habits start to change. It's going to take time before people say, rather than switching on a television news channel, let me try and see news in, how do you want me to watch video news? In playlists on an OTT platform? Okay, I get it. It'll take some learning, it'll take some time before people do it. But yes, I think the pandemic has got people used to trying crazy stuff. So to that extent, I think the roadmap has, what would have taken 5 years may well now happen in 1 year or 2 years. The problem in this business is going to be, in my view, that it's going to take time to convince advertisers, to convince brands, to do the marketing and say, guys, this is what the future is, this is what you're going to bet on. And then they're going to be coming to people in this sort of a space and saying, what are your TRPs? And they say, we don't have TRPs. Okay, how are you doing performance marketing? Actually, we're not even delivering performance marketing because this is OTT, right? This is on a big screen. So there's no direct deliverables that are available out there. So it is going to take time before brands and others decide to take the gamble, to bet on it, to say, okay, this is the future. Let's try and take a leap of faith and see, is this what is going to work? And that is why I think the long-term strategies that you were talking about, as opposed to short-term, immediate, this is ROI on my investment in the next 1 month, is going to start to happen. But once that happens, I think this is a better long-term landscape, especially for news and information. Why? Because you're delivering people what they should, the news and the information that they should see, together with what their interests are. It is being delivered to them in a very lean back manner. And every single ad and brand that you put into this is potentially clickable. So unlike television or television news where you can't do any interaction with the brand, here you can click on the brand and get more information. So over the long term, I think this is the trend that should work. How long it will take is really going to be the big question. I think my 10 minutes are over, so I'll pipe down now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vikram. I think it's you have given a new dimension. You also agreed that print cannot be totally replaced. I think print will continue to exist. I think that is correct. And also, I think this a new model. The current model is yours, I think. News videos. I also agree that maybe quality of news going down. Probably this you can. It's like a new generation can do. But one advantage and what I am seeing is, I think you will get always income in library. It will be viewed after 2 years, 3 years, regularly you will be getting some regular income, like rent you will be getting it. That is one advantage in this. Thank you, thank you. Friends, we had a very interesting speech from our 3 great speakers from media industry. The perspective provided them would greatly help the media industry realign its strategy to sustain growth in the context of the new normal scenario. I'd like to thank the Indian Institute of Mass Communication for being the academic partner for this conference. I also thank all the delegates for the continued support to the CII initiative. With this, we come to the end of the inaugural session, and the next session will start in 3 minutes. I request all of you to participate, stay online. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
வெற்றி அக்கா உங்களுக்கு பிரசன்டர் கண்ட்ரோல் கொடுத்துருக்கு.
Good morning, Bharadwachar. Hello. Vetri, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, Tulsi. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're audible.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Unmute.
Bharadwachar, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome. Mr. Sendil also there. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Tyagarajan,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Senthil.
sir. Good morning to all this
Good morning.
panelists.
Okay, it took me some time to log in because I've never used WebEx before, so it suddenly asked me to. I was like, okay.
It took you through this process of registering and this and that, I think. First
Yeah,
time.
I mean, like we usually use Zoom or I think the Google but this was like a new thing. So it's I thought immediately I don't know. It just took some time. So register for email
I can understand. So, ஒரே நிமிஷம் நீங்க just பேசிட்டுங்க sir informally. I'll just talk to Mr. Tyagu. Maybe he has also got some issue, but he said he'll log in over 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. You'll tell me when to start, Mr. Tulsiraj?
Sir.
Okay. So how are you, Senthil? What's up?
I'm good. How are you doing?
All fine, yeah. This like I mean, like I'm like one more time I hear this word new normal. I don't know what I'll do. I don't know whether it is the new normal. It seems to be changing by the day. So,
Yeah.
So how's Jayendra doing?
He's good.
Okay.
We're all getting ready for Diwali. Finally, it's looking like things could be a little more normal from Diwali onwards.
Right.
Sorry, 1 second. I'll just let dogs out and come.
Sure.
If something sets them off, then they go off into one.
Oh, right. That's a lovely background you have.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that shade of that kind of red kind of shade. It's very nice.
All my wife's doing.
So this chair you're sitting on, is it some kind of special ergonomic chair?
No. It's just a standard featherlight chair.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it's a bad idea because it has some fake leather covering, which makes it rather hot to sit on without
without a cushion. So I got this. If you can see my chair, it's this gaming chair.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
So I was supposed, like everyone told me, this is because now the like I don't suffer from a back issue as such, but if I don't sit properly and all that, I kind of there is always some issue, or if I don't sleep in a proper position. So I was asking everybody which is the best chair. Okay, no, get a gaming chair because that's the best thing. You can lean back, you can do this, you can do that. Just like I just like I need a like this proper chair which kind of is a no frills but all ergonomic chair. So
gamers are the people who sit for a long time on.
Right. Yeah. It's there. It's not bad, but somehow I'm not like too comfortable with that thing. So I like no distance between my back and the back of the chair. Like it should be like stiff.
Yeah.
This is more like a chilled out kind of
lean back and yeah.
So I have to put on Talagani, which I'm not doing now. So so it's kind of fun. So what did Jayendra? I asked Mani this question. How did Jayendra take the reception to Navrasa?
how did Mani take it?
Mani was quite like, he said like he was a little puzzled by the overwhelming this one, but we discussed the parts that we liked and all that kind of stuff. But he said it just like, I think people expected too much fidelity to the rasas themselves, or whatever it was. But then I asked him, there was some really bad films in there, and like, how did you guys let that through? And then he said there were some actual logistical issues because most of them were doing it for free, and so you can't demand the like a little too much from somebody who's doing like some films. He said were like last minute replacements. Because I told him I really like I liked 4 films actually. I liked the Payasam. I liked Karthik Subraj's film a lot. I thought the best was Raudram, which was Arvind Swami's. I really loved that film. And
In May, the one with the this thing, Siddharth and
no, not that. That didn't work for me that well. There was
sorry, sir. Bharadwaj sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Thiago is also logged in, sir. We're good to start.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Sorry about that, sir.
Not at all. Not at all.
So we can start, sir. We can start the session.
We can start. Okay.
Yeah.
So hello everyone, Mr. Tyagarajan and Mr. Senthil Kumar. I really want you both to begin by answering one question. Are things looking more optimistic? I asked this in one way, which is that we've just opened up for Diwali. There's going to be 100% occupancy in cinema theaters. The streets are already filled with people. Is there a chance that this may result in another kind of pandemic situation, or are we past it? Like we're good now. We're good and ready to step into the post-pandemic world. What is your intuition? I know this is, you can't really give me a proper answer for this, but what is your intuition?
Of course, this is a tough one to answer because even the WHO got it wrong the last 2 times.
Right.
Given that the sero surveys have shown in many states 70 to 80% antibody levels, and given that the Delta variant is already among the most infectious versions of any disease that mankind has ever seen, I'm hoping that there can't be much worse. Maybe a 10% worse version of the virus could evolve, but hoping that this is it. And as far as people are concerned, I think the fear of COVID is again gone. The 2 or 3 months after the first wave, it had gone. I think it's pretty much in that state now. People are happy to come back. Movies that family movies are attracting entire families. It's not just a few brave men that are going out. And these are all very good things for the future. And of course, now that schools, colleges are being reopened in part, the government's also decided that it's only fair to open theaters, at least in Tamil Nadu. And of course, Andhra, Telangana have also moved to 100%. But there are a few states that just opened up, like Kerala and Maharashtra, that have only 50%. So for Hindi movies, it's still a slightly tense period, given that there's so many states with 50% occupancy only. But for at least Tamil, Telugu, it's looking very promising from Diwali onwards. And Malayalam also, I'm sure that things will pick up as they will in Kannada, because that's also, Karnataka is also at 100%. So cautiously optimistic that we are in a good stage going forward.
Right. Mr. Tyagarajan?
You're on mute.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, Bharat?
Yeah. No, I'm saying, what are your views on the same thing?
I agree with Senthil. Things are looking very positive. Especially, recently released the film, Shivakarthikeyan's film, Doctor. The film was released, I think, 2 weeks, 3 weeks back. It opened up very well, and it continued to do well in all the centers. Not only in the cities, even in the suburbs, and it is expected to collect around 30 crores share, which is very good, and Shivakarthikeyan has proved that, he's moved up to the next level. And family crowd, in fact, I went to the theater. I wanted to watch it in the theater after a long time. I went to the theater in PVR, and on a Monday evening show, and it was full. It was only 50% capacity. It was full, and there were a lot of children and family crowd. So it's quite promising, and after nearly 18 months, it opened up slightly in the month of, when Master was released, things were very bright, and then, Karnan was released, Sultan, these films did well. But unfortunately, the second wave, after the second wave, things went bad. It's looking, right now it's looking very positive, and I heard that Anate expectations are very high, and we are hoping that it will do a phenomenal collection, Anate, for Deepavali. People are, in fact, I'm surprised, like I was shooting in Forum Mall, and I was surprised to see so much of people, family crowd coming to the theaters. So it's quite promising for us. Very, very promising.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the reasons is also that like Mr. Senthil said, there is this kind of impression that COVID is gone. Because even when you see the mask situation, you don't find many people wearing masks, and I think it's for them at least. I mean, most people seem to think that we are past the worst, and it's kind of we are kind of into the new era. But given that, I would like to take you back to the old, just the time of the pandemic itself. That is when COVID was at its peak, both with the first wave and the second wave. What kind of losses did, I'm not asking for numerical, not for numbers, but what kind of losses did Tube and let's say the film industry suffer? Was it just the fact that the sale of equipment was stopped, or was there a bigger ramification for Cube?
I think the ramifications were huge for most companies in the industry, but for us particularly, because we have a lot of infrastructure which is a fixed cost. We have our satellite-based transmission to theaters. We have all the investment in equipment in theaters across the country, which is mostly on our capital spend. And we have a lot of manpower to keep this whole machinery running. We had about 1,200 odd people before the start of the pandemic. These are all fixed costs, and while we can reduce salaries, we unfortunately also had to do a certain amount of reduction in the number of people. But many fixed costs could not be reduced. Like we have screening rooms across, like 7 or 8 screening rooms across the country. So those are a lot very high value items that we have to pay the rent for also. So the losses were unimaginable. I mean, if you had asked me in the start of the pandemic, when we started to look at how things were progressing in China and worrying about it in early February, we would have thought that we could last a month or two with the shutdown. But by a lot of hard work, some new investments, a lot of cost cutting and huge sacrifices by our team, we've managed to survive until now. But we've definitely made a lot of things more efficient as a result of this period. So that's the one positive, that when you're really pushed against a wall, you'll find ways to become more efficient. And that, I think, we've done a lot of things. Hopefully, this will help us get back on our feet over the next 6 months to a year.
Can you just define what you mean by efficient with an example?
For example, we needed a lot more people to do certain operations because the software to do it was not as well developed and automated. So we made the software, we took this time when we were not running to improve our software a lot, so that the number of people that we had to throw at fixing a problem was much less. We've also created a 4G based method of delivering content and keys, which is a lot more efficient in terms of cost and much more advanced in what we're doing. So we've improved a lot of things, processes behind the scenes that will make our future better.
Right. And Mr. Tyagarajan, when it comes to film theaters, one of the things that Suresh Babu sir told me from the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana was that a lot of theaters, single screen theaters especially, were being converted into Amazon godowns because steadily over the years, multiplexes have cornered the market and single screens are getting fewer and fewer things. What is the situation like in Tamil Nadu?
And Tamil Nadu also, what I understood from my friends in the theatre association, is that theatre owner association, that many of the single theatres suffered a lot. In fact, many of them had to close down for quite a few months. And, some of them I heard are being converted into commercial buildings or Kalyana Mandapams, like Maharani Theatre. It's one example. There are traditional people who have been in the business for so many years. And now, they have given up. Likewise, few other people like Shanti Theatre.
Even the iconic AVM Rajeshwari.
AVM Rajeshwari, iconic AVM Rajeshwari. So single theaters are getting affected, but I guess we have to wait and see after Annate whether there will be revival for single theaters, because we needed a big movie to come for the festival, and I heard that I don't know, Sendil, you might knowing, they might release in more than 650 centers. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks like that, and maybe another 300 or so outside of the state, and another 800, 900 internationally. So it will really be a very, very large release.
Yeah, and so I mean, we are hoping from Deepavali things should improve, and see, basically, they as far as production sector is concerned, I can tell you that many of us have been terribly affected, because we started a production, paid huge advances to artists, and during the COVID time, we were not allowed to shoot. So, interest cost, was going up. Unfortunately, for the film production, we don't have bank funding. We go to private financiers.
Yeah.
And the interest rates vary from 2% to 4% a month, depending upon the creditability of the producers. So private financiers are not willing to bring down the interest. So many of them have been affected now. Big star films, in any case, I'm sure there is a demand. I mean, people are definitely willing to come forward and fight for the theatrical release, or OTT is willing to buy the film. But we are now discussing about theatrical business. Things are improving little more. We have few more hits. There will be a lot more money available in the market, so there'll be more distributors coming forward to buy films.
Right.
And the theater owners will also have enough money. They would have slowly recovered their losses.
Right. See, one of the things that a lot of producers have told me that is really choking the Tamil film industry's throat is the fact that like at one point about 25% of a movie's cost used to go towards the hero, but today it's about 75% of a movie's cost goes to the hero. Whereas it's very different in the Telugu film industry, in the Hindi film industry, where they sometimes take a back end or where they sometimes take a territory or something like that, so that they are participating in the film's like success or failure. So they say that if you kind of a thing has this COVID situation made things a little different? Has it made the leading men think that, okay, because of us, there are many people, because of the huge salaries that we take in advance or whatever it is, there are many people here. So has it produced any change in that situation?
I want to be frank on that. It has not changed in the Tamil industry at all. In fact, none of them are even considering any reduction in their remuneration. And there is now slowly, there are many, I'm sorry, big players stepping in, and they are willing to pay 100% advance and do the projects. And, that is going to affect the independent producers to a great extent. I can just give you an example. When I started my first film, Moodram Pirai with Kamal, I can give the figures. My cost of production was 33 lakhs, 33 lakhs, and I paid Mr. Kamal 3.5 lakhs and Sri Devi 1 lakh. So it was only 10% of the total cost of production. But gradually now, what has happened is now, I don't want to mention names, but now the top heroes, now mostly in Tamil industry, they are demanding 50 to 60% of the total business. And, see, unfortunately, we don't have Sendil agreement, we don't have proper reporting systems for the collections. So it is always imagination. I'm sure recently released film Doctor, different people are giving different figures.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure,
always happens.
so what will happen is they would have told that particular hero that your film is collected so much. Say I heard somebody said it is collecting more than 45 crores. So, that gets into his mind. Honestly, I'm telling you, that gets in his mind. So he will definitely increase his salary. And but as far as Tamil film industry is concerned, in Tamil Nadu, market is definitely going to improve for the Tamil films. But we are concerned about overseas market. Overseas business is definitely not like what it was before. I'm sure even for Mr. Rajnikant's film, I think Mr. Senthil is releasing it. Earlier, there was huge demand, and now I was told that the offer was only 1/3 of his previous film.
Right.
And that's because many of the countries, they have restrictions.
Yeah.
But in Tamil, as far as Tamil Nadu market is concerned, we feel that there is going to be a growth.
Good. Okay. Mr. Sendil, isn't this a kind of a vicious cycle? Because, because we don't have a pattern yet. The movies that have done well are Master, Doctor, and to a slightly lesser extent, Sultan. Karnan's run was cut short by the second wave, so you can't really predict that thing. But it was doing well the first.
Yeah, it was doing well.
Yeah, but it, unfortunately, it couldn't do as well as like what it could have done had it had the wave not cut down. And now we have Doctor. All of these are with the exception of the Vijay Antony film, Koothithil one, which is the which is supposed to have done well. There is people seem to be picking out only the big films to go. So won't this be? Do you see this being a vicious cycle that that people will come to theaters only if there is a big star, and therefore the big stars know that they are the only people going to attract people, and therefore the economic situation is always going to be precarious in the Tamil film industry?
Yeah, this is a real worry because, like you said, if people only go to the big films, and today we are all in a desperate situation that we want audiences to come back and we want families to come back. So we are willing to live with them going only to the larger films. The hope is that as they go to more and more larger films, then they'll feel it'll become a matter of fact thing to go to the theater again. It'll become a desirable thing to go to the theater again, and they'll start going to the smaller movies as well. And the vicious cycle will be broken. That's the hope that we're all counting on. The other side of this equation is not that OTT can absorb these kinds of numbers in the small films, nor is OTT open to experimenting to the level that we need. Now anybody with the belief that they can make a great movie can make a movie and release it in theaters, and maybe it will work, maybe it will become a super hit, maybe it won't. But at least they have the complete ability to try. But
will the distributors buy these movies, these smaller ones?
No, it'll have to be a release by themselves. So they have to take the entire financial risk of production.
Right. So, Mr. Tyagarajan, I know we have only 5 minutes more. I want to ask you this thing now about this inevitable. We have to bring up the OTT question, right? So now again with the OTT, they are willing to pay good numbers for the big star films, but the slightly lesser films, very few have gotten through. Like a Mandela has gotten through, and it did very well. There are very, very few films that don't star like a big star. I mean, I guess you could say Mandela also has Yogi Babu, so he's a big attraction there. So I'm trying to think of if a Lokesh Kanakaraj came today and he wanted to make a Managaram. I was wondering how he would do it, because it was 5 years back or 6 years back or whenever he made it, that it was a normal situation where a lot of people went and saw a lot of different types of films. So people went and said, "Oh, in the padam nalla irukappa." So then the word of mouth grew for Managaram, and therefore a small movie which had no stars, the director nobody knew, was able to become a sizable hit in relation to its budget. Now today I'm thinking, if Lokesh wants to make a new Lokesh, somebody wanting to be a Lokesh wants to make a movie, how will he do it? Because if like that was my thing. Because is it possible to just depend on the OTT system, or is it like how will this person do it?
See, I feel, of course, definitely Lokesh not going to come back and make a small film.
No. I mean,
if a new Lokesh is coming, then you have to definitely, depend on your content. And if your content is good, then you're talking about OTT, right, or theatrical?
Both.
If the content is good, and now the practice is the OTT channels, they want to see the film before they make a commitment. And if they like the film, they have a team of people. If they like the film, then they buy it for the OTT. But say out of 300 films, Tamil films, I would say only about 20 or 25 films will get opening in the OTT. Others will have to release in theaters only. Theaters, they have to depend on theaters. I made a film with, just giving an example, I made a film with Adi, Hip-Hop Adi Shivakumar in Sabdam, and it was not a great film, but it was shot during COVID time, and it was shot with a very low budget, and no remuneration for him. And the film, we completed it as we budgeted. We showed the film, and we sold the satellite and digital. So we covered the cost. And then theatrical, I released it through my distributors, and on distribution basis, it collected around 3 crore share. So, it was a deal with Mr. Adi that I'll give him 50% of the theatrical surplus. So that was okay for me. So for small films, you do content, you have to make sure your budget is right. Your budget is right, and then you can take a chance. But talking about distributors, I'm sure Sendil also knows about it. Unfortunately, because of this 18 months, many of the besides the 5 top distributors who are dominating the industry, others have all lost out, and they don't have funding, and so we don't have uh, the so-called distributors who will come and buy the film on MG basis and release it earlier. It's not there anymore. So we'll have to wait and see. After Anate and few other films like Enemy and all that, they start doing well. I'm sure more people will get finance. They will come and buy the film on minimum guarantee or on distribution basis. But right now, I feel Sendil should also be knowing this. Starting from Deepavali till next year, April, May, I think there's going to be a big cluster. A lot of movies lined up, uh, pan Indian movies, our own big star films, Telugu star films. For Pongal, there's going to be a clash because there'll be big films, Mani Ratnam's films, and like Bahubali produces film. See, there's going to be demand for theaters, and especially small films will get affected. It will be very difficult for small films to get screens. Even right now, uh, all the exhibitors are willing to screen only Anate and Enemy. Unfortunately, they're not able to get enough theaters. That is the situation, and moreover, uh, we should have some sort of an arrangement where small films are given enough screens.
Right. And my final question to both of you, because we've already exceeded the time, how much or how much of the audience has been grabbed by the OTT? By that, what I mean is, let's say earlier, 100 people used to go to the theater and watch the movie in Tamil Nadu. What is the number today because of OTT? Because I'm sure there are people who have now said, okay, unless for very few films, I will go to the theater, but for a lot of other films, I'm going to wait for 3 weeks or something like that, and kind of a thing. I'm sure there is a certain number there. What is that number, and how is that going to affect what comes forward? Like earlier it was, let's say 100 people went to the theater. Both of you again, what do you think the number is now?
See, I don't think we can directly say that people are doing one or the other. I think people who love to watch movies and series, they're going to watch it in whatever way they can. And most probably what's happened is that OTT has taken away whatever subscription fees need to be paid to OTT. That's coming from satellite costs, because people have cut down on what they want to watch on satellite and they move to watching on demand. But theatrical is a different experience, and large films have no other outlet in order to make money than to first go to theatrical.
Yeah.
Simply because piracy will kill more than 75% of a movie's recovery if it goes on OTT. There's a 1,200 rupee little device on. I bought this on Amazon for some other purpose, and I tested it with my Amazon Fire Stick. It is able to record the output of the Fire Stick directly in really great quality, and that a pirate does, and he puts it out, which means that the OTT doesn't make money, the producer doesn't make money, and it just goes away to an audience that would otherwise go and watch it in the theater. So it's just foolish for large movies to ever release premiere on OTT, and I think all the big studios in the world, including Disney and Warner, have realized that completely.
Right. No, but I'm not talking about the premiere. Let's finish with Mr. Tyagarajan. Mr. Tyagarajan, when you say, what I'm saying is, let's say earlier a certain number of people, let's say like 100% used to go to the theater. Do you think that there is a significant impact in terms of theater going due to the OTT phenomenon, or is there no difference at all? It's like if it's a Rajni film, everyone will still go, and if it's a big film, it's still going to be like everyone goes to the theater, and OTT is going to be not affecting it at all.
Yes, I feel that right now people want to go out and experience in the movie theaters. Uh, and I have a strong feeling that Anathe is going to really, we are going to see the people coming in large numbers in all the centers. And people want an outing, and whatever it is, the experience of watching a film in a movie theater is definitely much better than watching it in OTT platform. And the excitement, you get to you experience in along with the other audience. See, earlier when the television came in, people were saying, that
The end
movie
of
industry would go away.
yeah.
That's the end of it, go away. But then, that is now television is for older people, and they watch serials and all that. But definitely people, afterwards they still continue to watch films in theaters. I remember even Oh My Kadavale, that film, I remember watching it in AGS. Lot of youngsters and the
Yeah.
family crowd came into the theater. It will start coming in. I think the now people mindset, they are very clear that the third wave is not going to come in, and people, I feel they're going to start coming to theaters.
Fantastic.
OTT, yes, like there are people who are, settled down, but I'm not sure what is the percentage. Definitely.
Right. But yeah, but there are, I mean, that does seem to be, there does seem to be the feeling that a certain amount of theatrical revenue will come down because of OTT. That is the general thing I'm reading in business papers, because they say that there are a few people who kind of, when you consider all of India, there are quite a few people who are like, because one thing that OTT gives you is you television is appointment viewing. You have to sit there at that particular time and watch that film. Whereas with OTT, you can watch it at any point at any point of time. So let's see. Let's have hope, and thank you both so much for participating in this session. I know a session like this should actually like maybe be 2 hours long, because there are so many things to consider. But thank you very much for participating in this session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. See you, Sendil. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Tulsiraj, for arranging everything.
Hi, good morning. Can I see somebody from CII Internal Cell?
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Shivakumar. How are you?
Fine, Mr. Satish. We will be starting the session in just a few minutes. We are waiting for other panelists to join.
Alam, I just wanted to check the share option has not been enabled.
We will enable that, Mr. Satish.
Thank you. Not too familiar with the Cisco WebEx platform. Too much of a Zoom person. So I want to ensure everything is fine.
Yes, you're right.
Thank you. Is my video clear?
Yes, very clear. Your
Thank you.
audio is also clear. Good afternoon, Professor Yadav.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can
Good
you hear me?
afternoon. Yes, yes, very clear.
Yeah. So is video fine?
Yeah, video is also fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm here only. So whenever we'll start, just let me know.
Yes, I will tell you.
Sure. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Girish. Good afternoon. You have to unmute.
Is it working now?
Yes, yes, now it is working.
Yeah, great. So I just wanted to check whether the connection is working properly because I'm at a remote
Yes,
location, not in Bombay.
it's
So
fine. The video is fine and the audio is also very clear.
great. Thanks. I went through the previous session, so that was quite interesting, as in, especially Tarun and company being very optimistic and painting a very rosy picture. It sounds.
Yeah, that also reflects the ground scenario.
But I think this was more grounded. The second panel was more grounded in reality and more practical in that sense, in their assessment of the situation.
Good.
Hi, Girish. How are you? This is Satish here.
Hi, Satish.
Good to meet you.
I think,
So
I think we are going live. So whatever we say would be visible on YouTube. That's my understanding,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We are on live. Yes, yes. So can we start the session now?
Is everybody in? Are all the panelists there?
I request all the panelists to switch on the video.
I think Kishan is not yet in. Since we
Kishan
decided,
yet to join. Yes.
yeah, since we decided to start a little earlier.
Yeah, I think he said he's trying to join earlier.
Yeah, maybe you should give a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will wait for another 2-3 minutes.
In the sequence, he's third or he's first?
He is third. He is second.
Okay.
After Mr. Satish.
Okay. Just getting a clean backdrop was a challenge when you are at a remote location and not in your living room or office, So it's just getting because I'm not used to WebEx so much. So with Zoom, I use virtual backgrounds and have really nice, slick virtual backgrounds. So, it's always easy, but when you're without on a platform you're not very used to, it becomes a bit of a challenge to get a clean background.
Yeah, I guess these days the background is more important than the attire.
True. And then, very short and so.
This said it in jest.
Yeah.
So worried about somebody moving behind, right? You or someone running through. It's become a part of our life.
Yeah. But actually, this amazing fatigue, as in, virtual conferences sound great, as in we organize as, our magazine entities, but the audience, the fatigue, as in it's just panelists talking to one another and, audience becomes a huge challenge. So I think the time is, most of us do awards events as well. And if it's a sponsored event, you have to do offline events because most people are comfortable traveling. They're traveling for business. If they're traveling for business, they can easily travel for a panel discussion or an awards event. So, I think offline is the way. And I was attending one of the previous panels where I said print readership is back. Yeah, there's only so much screen you can watch, Yes, audio will get a boom and, podcast will take off. But beyond a point, screen, the fatigue is so much, as in I'm spending at least 12 to 13 hours on a screen, and my mobile phone is my primary device. And you can use only so much of a screen. So print, newspapers actually end up spending more money. My newspaper bill is higher than my OTT bill, to give you, and of course you recover all of that with the Raddi value. You sell it to the scrap dealer.
Is it because the OTTs are cheaper?
Yeah, it's underpriced. Yeah, India, the challenge is, that's one of the points I was wanting to make as well. With ridiculously low OTT prices, ridiculously low data prices, it's the same problem which print, as in magazines, faced with newspapers, right? Times of India pricing, a fat newspaper at 2 rupees is free, right? As in data is free in India. So
we're so advertiser dependent, I guess. That's the difference. Probably Malayalam Cinema as a group, though I'm not representing that part of the business. The newspaper, I think, has one of the highest cover prices in the country.
Yeah, I actually everybody would have had it had it not been for some players, legacy reasons. But that is a challenge, right? As in, actually, with anybody who has a cash cow, it's a lot easier. So if you're a big publisher on any platform, you at least have some cushion to invest in, the newer formats, experiment that runway. Here, if you're a print publisher, you are not going to get, the conventional unicorn level funding unless you have digital play to show. And once you have digital play to show, that's when you get into the game. So it's quite interesting.
Talking about getting back to doing physical events, I think people are slowly moving back. I think sometime back, India today did a conclave with some distancing and lesser number of round tables, etc. So physical events are slowly coming back, but with lesser audiences. But yes, we might have to start looking at a hybrid model of.
Yeah, I think hybrid would continue, right? As in now, because it's just a very small incremental cost. But physical, at least the panelists coming together and some audience, it brings in more interactivity, which otherwise is missing in today's time. So yeah, it's quite a challenge.
Good afternoon, Mr. Krishnan.
Hi, Shiva Kumar. Hi, Pierre. How are you doing?
Fine, Mr.
Krishnan. Hi, Dr. Aditi.
So we will start the session now. Good afternoon. I welcome all the participants to the session on digital subscription and paywalls as key drivers for revenue growth. I also welcome our distinguished speakers, Mr. P.R. Satish, CEO of Malayalam Manorama Television, Mr. Krishnan Kumar, Chief Growth Officer, Waymaker Global, and Mr. Girish Malia, Chief Operating Officer of Nexen Publishing. Thank you all for joining us today. The session is chaired by Dr. Anubhuti Yadav, Head of the Department of New Media and IT and Advertising and Public Relations from the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, New Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Yadav, for chairing the session. Dr. Yadav comes with more than 15 years of experience in teaching and research. Her work in the area of education media has won her 4 national awards. She is member of the Educational Council and the Academic Council at IIMC. She has received several awards, including Women of Excellence Award by Women Economic Forum and Web Wonder Women Award by the Ministry of Women and Child Welfare for her innovative work in social media. Before I hand over the session to Dr. Yadav, I would request the participants to post their questions in the chat box only. We will take up the questions at the end of the session. Over to Dr. Yadav.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shiva Kumar, for the introduction. And I, on behalf of IMC, that is Indian Institute of Mass Communication, and CII, welcome you all to the second session of this conference on building a sustainable media post-COVID. And in this session, we'll be deliberating on digital subscriptions and paywalls as key drivers for revenue growth. And in fact, like before the session started, panelists were discussing about this and the challenges which people are facing right now. So we all are aware that the pandemic had an adverse impact on all the industries, all the sectors. And when we talk about media and information and media and entertainment sector, I mean, it has been impacted a lot. It grew slower than anticipated at 7.4%. And while the slowdown caused segments like print and television advertising to suffer, digital media and gaming continued to grow at a rapid pace and contributed to the growth of sector. And in fact, at the time of the pandemic, we have seen that it's the digital which actually sort of saved the media and entertainment industry. So when we talk about the print, it actually witnessed downward trend with the growth registered at 8% in 2020. Digital and OTT witnessed 26% growth, which is second highest after gaming, where the growth was 45%, which is huge if you compare it with any of the other sector. Technology innovations were the key to survive, and this is something which happened at the time of the pandemic. And these innovations were happening in all the sectors, right? It was happening in education, it was happening in media and entertainment sector. In fact, in media and entertainment sector, we have seen a lot of innovation in terms of how one can package content innovatively regarding distribution also, dissemination of the content also. But there's this one place wherein we all lagged behind, and that's what we are going to discuss about today, is that taking that idea of subscription and paywalls to our readers. I think that was an opportune moment for all of us. We could have done that because when we talk about lockdown, which was announced in March 2020, that was the time when just post lockdown, the vendors actually refused to distribute newspapers. There were different resident welfare association, they have banned the distribution of newspapers. Newspapers, they thought that they can't be printed because people were not buying that, and then they shifted from print to digital. Even the people shifted from print to digital to consume news at that point of time. But there's this one very important thing happened at that point of time. I don't know whether it was good or bad, but it happened, and that is something which we should discuss in this particular session. At the time of the pandemic, we had seen that all the newspapers or magazines, they started making their versions freely available in the form of PDF. And we had seen WhatsApp groups full of PDF versions of different newspapers, different magazines. And that point of time, we did have a lot of discussion on this because we felt that that was a moment wherein we could have told our target audience that, okay, if you're not paying for your print edition, this digital edition is available for you and you should pay for this thing. But it was made freely available. Taken that maybe like during that tough time, you wanted to retain loyal consumers, retainers, and that's why it was made freely available. But I strongly feel that was the time wherein we could have taken Indian audience to this idea that yes, if you want to consume content, and especially if you want to consume quality content, you should ready to pay for this particular content. So these are the few things which I feel we'll be discussing, and we have a very esteemed panel with us. We have with us Mr. P.R. Satish. He is a CEO Malayalam Manorama Television. We have with us Mr. Girish Malia, who is CEO Next Gen Publishing. We have with us Mr. Krishnan Kumar, who is Chief Growth Officer of Wavemaker Global. So a very warm welcome to all the panelists, and I know that you people are coming from the industry, very senior people with a lot of experience. There's just one thing I would like to mention here and share with you is that there are a lot of students here, a lot of students from especially advertising and public relations department will be joining the industry. And for them, it's very important to know the industry perspective, what is happening in the industry and how industry is working towards it, post pandemic. So the first speaker, I would like to invite Mr. P.R. Satish, but before that, I would like to introduce him. Mr. P.R. Satish has a journey of 30 years in the media and marketing space. The journey has seen the launch of multiple editions of newspapers, magazines, television shows, in-store television, mainstream TV, sports, mobile, augmented reality, location-based services. Assignments have been to conceptualize, forge tie-ups, scale across multiple categories, including profit center responsibilities and the unique opportunity to work across the country from Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore to Kochi, understanding the nuances of people and culture. And this is something which is very important when we are talking about Indian audience. A journey that has taken him across print, television, shopper marketing, and digital mobile world. This is about Mr. Satish, who is the first speaker. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Satish, and over to you.
Thank you, Professor Yadav. I think it's going to be an interesting 10-minute session. We're all a bit ahead of time, so I guess some of us can take that extra 2 minutes out of the next session, I guess, and do speak about it if it's interesting indeed. So before I move into a short presentation, I'd like to say digital subscription and paywall as key drivers for revenue growth was the topic. Yes, digital subscriptions are important. Content behind paywall is important. That's the new thing that's been sort of happening for the last decade or so globally. Let's not forget that there is a lot of free content too that's available. A cable operator, if you pay 200 rupees, you can get 200 television channels. There are large platforms that are really, really free, totally free. You know, I'm talking about YouTubes and Facebooks everywhere. Video content consumption is happening. So since my forte at this point of time is television and digital OTT, I think I'll stick to that aspect of the business. Just a reminder, in this part of the world, newspapers didn't really suffer during pandemic. It has one of the highest cover prices. Digital versions have been around for 2 decades in Kerala. So digital is not new to Kerala, both from a print perspective and from a OTT television perspective. That's far more newer in the last 2 or 3 years. I'll quickly share my presentation and then start the. I hope the presentation is visible. Can everyone see?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, this was the beginning. Interesting. It's just okay going through the last 2 years, what's happened in the television OTT space as far as we are concerned. What is the biggest thing that's happened in this part of the world? This man, some of you will know, most of you might know, some of you may not know, Suresh Gopi, the host of KBC in Malayalam for 5 seasons. So why I chose this particular image is primarily because when the pandemic started, the show was ending. The biggest show all time, the one could see on television, Amitabh Bachchan has hosted it for God knows how many seasons. And interestingly, sort of this man took us into the digital mobile OTT space. In a sense, we launched our OTT and a digital paywall in 2019, September, October. And the show was launched in November 2019. 5 months down the line, we had a lockdown. So here we brought in some amount of interactivity. What I'm trying to get to here is television and digital interactivity can drive consumers to mobile platforms, OTTs, and through which you try and upsell your paid content behind a paywall. So just expecting consumers to come and open and start looking at content. Yes, it's indeed a content play. You can buy more content, put it behind paywall. You can get priced out. You can continue to throw in millions of dollars, keep buying content and putting it behind a paywall. Unique content, original content, and also interactive content is extremely important to grow your consumers and audiences, both from a television perspective and from a digital perspective. So extremely important. So this was the journey that we started. 6 months down the line, we figured out we're staring at this situation. This is the road near Lulu Mall, one of the most busiest happening place in Cochin. For maybe a photographer's delight. Never get a picture again like this. I know many days when I've driven past, not this road especially, but other parts of the city to get to work. We couldn't sit at home and work from home. Running a news channel and a television business is not so easy during lockdown. All of us know that. So having said that, interactive gameplay is something that we learned in the pre-pandemic era. We started our digital OTT paywall payments gateway, etc. about 2 years ago. Exciting days. Interactiveness does work. People are willing to pay, provided they get the content they want, provided they get the interactivity that they want, without which you can't get to consumers to pay out money. As I said at the beginning of this session, there are enough and more large free platforms out there, spewing enough videos through WhatsApp and Facebook and YouTube that you're also competing with. It is not just Netflix and Prime Video, which are the largest examples of paid payment platforms globally. Because India has a few more. So we took a sort of a step forward post the pandemic, used the 2 months of lockdown. Obviously, news channels were alive, but entertainment channels had to sort of almost go into a total lockdown mode with repeat content and films. We used this opportunity to revive an existing show which had done 2 seasons, completely different from what it did in the first 2 seasons. I get to the point, where is this all going? Building a sustainable media business post-COVID is where this comes in. Not too much into the digital subscriptions and paywalls subject. A show that would go to a village, a show that will go to a panchayat, a show that will go to a small town, put a cash machine, 2 hosts would get 2,000, 5,000 people to play an instant game on a cash machine and take home some money. We had to innovate. So innovation is extremely important these days and times in a post-pandemic world. But innovate and bring this show back into a studio. So you have a cash machine and these 2 anchors talking to a consumer sitting at home through a virtual platform and playing the show. So you quickly mount a show without too many people, without the logistics issues, without the restrictions of social distancing and all those challenges that are there. You put a show together, use virtual platforms, drive interactivity through a play-along model on mobile OTT and subscriptions thereafter. So you need to innovate. You need to bring out more unique content, or you can throw millions of dollars and buy more content and put it up there and expect consumers to come and pay for your content. You have to be a lot different from others. You have to do what you can do within the constraints of all other resources that may be available for you to play around with. So this was one of the most important aspects that we could think during April, May of 2020 and say, okay, let's do this. It's easy to launch. As soon as the lockdown is opened up, let's do this. It's also going to help your digital platform. It's going to help your OTT. It's going to help your payment, sort of game interactivity and so on. So that's a very, very key aspect. I don't think anybody else has tried this apart from Sony does, I think, some work with KBC on Play Along. We've taken this another level and done about 600 episodes on the trot from last June, July 2020, and it's that's still on air. So it brings in a lot of consumers. It brings in a lot of consumers who further then we sort of upsell them to make a payment to watch other content. Then in a post-pandemic situation, what else do? You bring in creativity, you bring in innovation, reach out. Would you like to sort of release a film in 100 theaters, or would you like to release a film in 1,000 theaters? We are all people with some amount of resources and limited amount of resources. Reach out and bring in more partners. Get out to see where else you can put your content behind. You build your own, paid walls and content behind payment gateways. But you also can reach out to people who have interest in putting out your content and driving subscriptions and hence thereby giving you more revenue possibilities. So new distribution partners, new partners to go to with and put out your content out there. So a lot of content syndication, slightly different from content syndication, is about partnerships and driving your revenue further. This is another thing that we are fairly successful. I think Prime Video Channels launched about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we are a part of that. Another interesting aspect of digital content is we've seen a lot of content integration happening on television, some amount of it in films. It's really on the face. When you see content integration on TV, we also do a lot of it. It's very, very on the face, and it sort of sticks out clearly as something that was done for the purpose of making a few thousand rupees, a few lakhs of rupees. But on the digital platform, you can really partner with the client and engage with the client and work around the script to create content, create branded content, and that's put on your OTT platform behind a paid wall, and people are willing to pay. So you're sort of, in a way, partnering with a brand to engage and co-produce content or partially sort of fund the content that you're trying to create. Nothing new about it, but I think many more people are trying to do. How successful, how many of these can you do? This shouldn't look like something that has been done as a plug. It has to look as it's beautifully integrated. So hence, discussion with the brand at this script stage is extremely important, which is what, again, we did post-lockdown. So 2-3 examples around interactive play, reaching out to more people through multiple partnerships, get into brand partnerships to see what you can do. How do we do? All of this helps drive finally digital engagement and also more people subscribing to your content behind the paywall. So that's the 2 or 3 key takeaways. Of course, one can also look at syndication, put out content to multiple players. So that's really not, it's sort of diluting an IP in a sense, but you can. It's about what do we do in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So this is also another possibility. Use social to shout out. We may be a large media organization, but social, which is YouTube and Facebook primarily, use it to shout out and drive your payment and subscriptions. We have a large digital capital out there with millions of subscribers on both YouTube and Facebook for our news and entertainment channels. So we used it quite aggressively. How do you drive? You can put out content, you can buy content, you can put it behind a paywall, but unless you spend millions of dollars or the money behind media again. So I'm talking, we as media organizations still need to use a lot more. Putting out an ad in Malayalam Manorama or on own television channels may not always help. So you got to look out for opportunities to drive audiences to come and pay those few hundred rupees. Like Girish was saying while we were all trying to connect, the most underpriced segment today is OTT. You might pay 200, 300 rupees to buy a newspaper per month. We don't pay more than 500, 600 rupees per year to buy subscription into OTT. So that's a challenge. One needs to work around the pricing. One needs to work around content. One needs to work around interactivity. One needs to try and see how can we engage with brand and thereby co-produce some content and put it behind the paywall. Largely, this is what we have attempted in the last 18 odd months to see how can we be different from what we were doing earlier. I think the journey has been fairly successful with the kind of resources that we play around and work with, and not really taking the conversation to billions of dollars of investments in the content space. So that I'd like to talk and move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do you have one more slide?
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, okay, you're done.
I'm trying to see. I'm not too used to this platform. How do I stop sharing? Yep, I found it.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Satish, and it was a wonderful presentation. And thanks for sharing, all the strategies. Now, I would like to. We'll have question and answer towards the end of, all the presentations. So now I would like to invite Mr. Krishnan Kumar. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Wavemaker, India's leading content and technology agency. He is part of Wavemaker India Executive Committee and has served at Wavemaker Global Creative Leadership Team. Prior to this, he was the Managing Director, Maxim Vietnam, a MICA postgraduate with 16 years experience in strategic planning, revenue management, innovation, and mentorship. He led business impacting work for Titan and Tanishq, Britannia, Tata Consumer, Google, Myntra, Acco, Arvind Fashion, and MTR Foods. He is part of various teams that received 150 plus national and international awards, including Cannes. Mr. Kishan is a keen observer of culture and its impact on consumer behavior. He believes in driving organizational growth by unlocking people's potential. His passion includes sports, cinema, music, theater, travel, and food. And he runs a podcast called Alternate Dimension with daughters aged 9 and 6. Interesting. He is at the sunset of 33-year-long cricket career. So very warm welcome. I think very multifaceted personality. We would like to know about your podcast also. So over to you, Mr. Krishnan.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think this is probably the 75th webinar I am partnering PR Satish. So hi everyone. Good afternoon.
I hope we got repeated some of these earlier somewhere else.
So good afternoon, everyone, and I think I hope all of you are well, and I hope all of you are looking forward to a weekend on a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much, Professor Yadav, and hi Girish and PR. Thank you, Shiv, for this wonderful opportunity. And I think so. I had a presentation, but somehow I'm not able to share. So as an agency guy, if you are not with a presentation, you're almost like Virat Kohli without a cover drive. So you can't. You are like or Arjuna without the Pashupatastra. So you're feeling fidgety, right?
Krishnan, you can share now. It's enabled.
Is it enabled? No, it doesn't say. No, I think I have downloaded the temporary this one on my.
This is not the full app, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, it's not a full app, so I didn't download the full app. I did. That's fine. I'll, like any other agency, I'll manage. I'll talk myself out of the situation. Great. So when when this whole topic was brought up, and said that how do we discuss on something where you have to make Indians pay for things quality? I think it is next to impossible, I thought, right? But I think an agency guy is probably the best guy to take this up, because he's been going through this for his entire life. So I kind of welcomed it, saying that how do you, and it's an interesting and interesting challenge. However, I thought that I will probably look at it from the consumer lens, because the panelists here are all experts from the broadcasting and publishing phase, and also from the academic world. So I thought maybe I'll take a different lens, and I'll take a lens of the consumer and the marketer, right? And see how do we make, are there some ways in which you can kind of help get subscription going in today's times, of course, in the context of the pandemic and all of that. And when I was thinking deeper as to how do we crack this, I said that probably it is important to go behind the why rather than of the how, right? So there is always something deeper with consumers that actually probably will help us to crack this one. So I thought that maybe that's a great way to start this. And so I'm going to put that caveat out there, that I'm going to look at it from the consumer lens. And I'm going to, this is not prescriptive, this is not a template, this is not a formula at all. This is all point of views from what I have observed, especially looking at the ecosystem in the last 18 months or so, right? And then probably it will apply to you. And some of the points PR has already mentioned, so I'm going to be a little repetitive in some of the points, but that's how I'm going to talk about. So and also the other thing is that I've been attending a lot of webinars, seminars, conferences as panelists and audience in the last sort of 2 to 3 years, right? And in the last 18 months, there has been this whole transition of mood from, oh no, come on, man, it's not going to happen, to, oh yeah, it's happening. Okay. Oh man, it's happening, to, oh great, it's happening. Can we do something about it, right? So we are situated in terms of this whole subscription point. It is about, oh great, it is happening, but how do we now take it forward, right? I mean, there are reports, if you look at the CII report, actually, there is a CII BCG report where a recent which came about a few months back, which says that Indians are actually very, very open to, paying for digital content, whether it is on OTT. The news thing is also going forward, especially post the pandemic. So I think the intent is there. I think what helps us to consolidate that further and add momentum is what I'm going to talk about, right? And I think the best thing that could have happened to us is the Chief Transformation Officer, which is COVID. So COVID is actually, like the meme was going around during the pandemic, COVID has been the Chief Transformation Officer, not only for corporates, but also for India. And I think that has made India completely change a lot of things, right? So the way India is shopping has completely changed. The way India is transacting has completely changed. The way India is learning has completely changed. And most importantly, the way India is consuming content is completely changed. So I thought maybe it is important to go behind how has India changed in consuming content, and then probably derive answers to hence how do we help to get monetization going from a subscription point of view. All of us agree that the content consumption has completely changed in the last 18 odd months. So I went and thought about how do we make it a simpler. So I asked 4 fundamental simple questions, because some of the answers to the difficult questions are always in simple ones, right? So I said, who is consuming this content? Is there any shift happening there? What is happening to this content consumption? Any shifts there? Where are these content consumptions happening? And how is this content consumption happening? So if I take the first one, which is who is consuming this content? Now, earlier, let's say, imagine 2 years back, there was this very straightforward, simple sort of stereotypes of content consumption in India, right? Women and daily soaps, men looking at 9 o'clock fights, a lot of people everywhere in the country bleeding blue, morning newspaper and coffee. And there is this whole sort of stereotypes on content consumption just completely gone out of the park, right? So I call these as the old guard, whereas then there is a whole host of new guard, which is in our advertising and media language, we call them cohorts. It's the most second most used word in the advertising industry after transformation, I think. So there are multiples of cohorts which are consuming content in insane manner, right? Lots and lots of people up north watching Malayalam films. and making videos about it. Women going and consuming content, consuming gaming content like mad. 60+ people addicted to, like my mom, addicted to Hotstar and the OTTs of the world, right? I mean, you can create so many of such examples of new guard who is consuming content in a very, very different fashion, in a most unexpected fashion because of the pandemic and because of choices, right? Pandemic leading to choices. So along with the old guard, which is very easily definable, we all know it demographically, psychographically, all of that, there is this whole new guard which is coming up in many, many ways and consuming content in a manner. So important to look at the new guard of consumption. That's the first point from the who aspect. What is this consumption happening now? So earlier it used to be this very simple way of consumption, right? Which is, there is video and there is word, right? Video in terms of television and video and whatever, and word in terms of newspaper and digital and all of that. Today it is completely different, right? There is video, there is text, there is audio, there is image, there is this and that and the other, right? So within audio, there is streaming and podcasts and this, that, and that, and the other. So there is a whole host of multiplicity of platforms and this thing happening. Secondly, it all used to be lean back and consumption, right? So I'm on my couch and I'm watching content leaning back. Today it is leaning forward and consumption, right? So I'm not only watching and consuming or reading and consuming, but I'm also wanting to be part of it, right? Which is what the interactivity piece that Satish talked about. So leaning back has become leaning forward. So much so that it's almost like snatching. So much of lean forward that sometimes snatching happens, right? So there is leaning forward that is happening. Earlier, it used to be very safe and tried and tested and all of that. Today, people want experiments. So there is far more of experimentation and exciting content that is being asked for by people rather than safe, formalized stuff. Of course, there is a vast majority of television which is continuing the same. Cinema will continue the same and all of that. But there is increasingly, and probably the good part of it is the OTT space, right? Where you can see that there is the whole host of experimentation happening. So consumers are asking for it and people are delivering towards it. So the third is safe, moving to exciting, engaging, risk taking. So risk averse to risk taking in that sense. And the fourth is, okay, here is what you will get, take it, versus let me decide what I want to, and hence give me that. So there is a whole host of consumer centricity that is happening in the way content is consumed. So there is new guard and there is whole host of, it is beyond interactivity. I would not say it is interactivity. It is about the consumers trying to take control of what they want to consume, right? And that's a big consumer shift. And that is something that we need to keep in mind when, if at all, we have to monetize in a better manner. Now, the third is, where is this consumption happening? Again, there is this whole stereotype of places where consumption can happen, right? There is television in the living room, or newspaper in a certain way, movies on screens and things like that. All that has gone out of the window, right? I mean, you can consume anything, anytime, anywhere. Access is not so much of a problem. Screen size is not so much of a problem. And with the kind of proliferation of data and all of that, I don't think it's so. Consumers have tasted blood, basically, right? So that's the third aspect of it. It's the any effect that I would call it, right? And the fourth is about how it is happening. So all sorts of things are happening, from snacking content to binging content. All sorts of things are happening. So the who, the what, the where, and the how is completely shifting to a new direction. I think so. The answer to how do we hence monetize better will depend on how do you sort of address these things in a better manner and how do you leverage this. So I kind of put down 5 pointers so that you can, these are all 5 ways to sort of monetize better in my mind from a very, and I'm not going into how each of this can translate into action. I'm only saying these are all slightly macro in terms of pointers, but I think I'll try to deconstruct it with some of the examples, right? So the first one is saying, if we spoke about new guard, it is important to find them and know them, right? Where are the people who are interested in Korean cinema sitting? For example, there is a huge popularity for K-pop in Andhra Pradesh. I mean, it's bizarre, right? Why is that K-pop is getting so much popularity in Andhra Pradesh? There has to be some reason, right? So similarly, finding the new guard and knowing that new guard, what do they like? What kind of genres do they like? What kind of news articles do they like? How do they like news to be presented? Is it short format, descriptive format, all of that. So finding the new guard and knowing the new guard is the first step towards better monetization, because I think that's where I think the first key is. And for that is where I think the data plays important, right? Data is now not only restricted to targeting and understanding your audiences, but also getting the better of what would consumers want, what kind of consumers, how many of them, how large, and then trying to create packages and all. So all the 5 points that I'm going to mention are all then going to work under the umbrella of price, product, and promotion, which I'll come to. Right. So the first is finding the new guard and knowing them better through the power of data. The second is, how do you help these consumers to lean forward so that they find value and in the quality and hence pay for it? Because today, if you're not helping them lean forward, you are not going to excite them to pay for it. For example, if Netflix created series with different sort of endings and leaving it to the consumer's hands to choose which one to go to, that is in a way helping them leaning forward. Or there is an example there are various examples where the leaning forward is given to in the hands of the consumer, right? So how do you help them lean forward is something that is important from the monetization point of view. The more you help them lean forward, the more it will help you to monetize better, is my view. The third is, how do you join them with the self-expression, right? For example, the content that people watch is a means to an end. It is not the end. The content that you watch is a means to the end of your self-expression, the person you are. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, the content that you are watching, you are experiencing, you are engaged with are in a way an extension to your personality, your interests, your self-expression, right? So if you are helping consumers to help them self-express themselves, you are probably going to get better monetization because you are understanding their need to self-express. So for example, there is an interesting daily soap that is done in Tamil Nadu by Wicket and Group M. We did this together. It was a daily soap that ran on YouTube, where a lot of it was based on consumer interactions. So it was a daily soap on digital, and it ran on a lot of consumer interactions based on how they felt, what the storyline is, and things like that. And it is, in a way, it is self-expression, right? And that self-expression, for example, why is that in digital there is a citizen journalist sort of a thing works better than in television, for example, right? So those are the things that probably helping them in their self-expression will help us to monetize better. That's the third point. Fourth point, I think, is something that probably is difficult to do. Very easy for me to say as an agency guy, but I'm saying let go of the control. Most of the publishers or creators or broadcasters who are the owners of the content need to let it go. You are only creating it and letting it go rather than keeping it, because the more you make consumers own it, the easier it will be for you to monetize it. That's the way I feel. So if you let go, if you let go more, I think you'll be able to find more and more people coming towards you to help you monetize better. And the fifth is be any ready, right? It can be any time, any format, anywhere. So if you are finishing an IPL match at 11:30, you need to be prepared to give a really interesting analysis video at 11:30. You cannot wait for that for the next morning, right? So it is anytime, anywhere, any format. And that's something where is very important. The flexibility and the agility as somebody who is a creator, publisher, broadcaster, anybody for that matter, is extremely important. And so these are the 5 points, right? Finding and knowing the new order. How do you help them lean forward? How do you help them self-express? Letting go and be any ready is the 5 things. And then you work around the price, product, and promotion. So like what PR mentioned, the Amazon video is a great example of a great product combination which excites people to pay and take, right? So for example, I wanted to always get movie as a channel, but it was too expensive. But when it came on Amazon Prime, Amazon video channels, I got it, right? Because it was much cheaper there, right? So things like that. Or pricing, and I think India has done some great pricing, whether it is Netflix doing India-centric pricing or anybody's doing it. So pricing is important. Pricing is multiple kinds of pricing probably need to be done based on who are you looking at, who are you targeting, who's your new guard, right? And promotion, of course, you need to promote it based on what is relevant for them. So that's what I think. And I think without the deck, I thought I managed reasonably well. This is again based on my observations and views. I'm happy to take questions in the end.
Yeah, thank you so much, Krishnan. I mean, that was a wonderful presentation. And in fact, the first lesson which our students have got it is that even if you do not have access to your presentation, you should be able to deliver well. So that was wonderful. And all the points which you have raised, and especially like looking at it from the consumer's lens, that is something which is very important. And all the 5 points which you have made makes a lot of sense. Of course, it's a very difficult subject. I mean, we can't say that this one thing is going to work, but yeah, that's a complex issues, and we'll be taking questions and we'll be discussing about this thing in detail. So thank you so much. But we would like to know about that podcast which I mentioned while reading.
Oh yeah, okay. So I do a podcast called Alternate Dia Mentions. My daughter's name is Dia.
Okay.
It's on Spotify and all the platforms. It started off as a joke where she's very much interested in reading and history and mythology and all of that. So it was just a chat around different topics where she talks and I try to fool around. It's just simple as that. So we have done season 1 with about 12 episodes. Season 2 started. We talk about various things from mythology to her 5 top favorite television shows to she fights for gender equality. So there is an episode called it's a podcast. It's not a podcast. It's a protest cast by her on gender and all of that. So general goof. So I am the comic element. She's the content. So
okay, right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now I would like to invite the third speaker, Mr. Girish Malia. He is Chief Operating Officer at NextGen Publishing, a leading specialist magazines publishing company, and he has over 20 years of History India magazine, and in the past he has running the official Google AdWords reseller program for his company, and he was part of the founding team at NextGen Publishing, and he was directly responsible for building their digital footprint from the day one. While he's not working, he's spending his spare time on Twitter or pursuing his interest in endurance running and cycling. So welcome, Girish, and over to you now.
Thank you, Professor Yadav. So it's never too easy to be the last speaker when you're having a panel discussion like this, but I'll try my best to stick to the topic and also address the question you had regarding those free WhatsApp PDF magazines that were circulating. So I'll try to address that issue as well. So we've had, coming to the topic, regarding subscriptions and paywalls, most print publishers, so I'm representing the smaller niche publishers both in the newspaper and print space. So I'll sort of be their spokesperson versus large media houses like the Times of India Group or Malayalam Manorama. The resource constraints that smaller publishers face are very different versus a large publishing house which can experiment, innovate a lot more effortlessly. And here, for each experiment, you need to justify whether it's worth that experiment and whether the pros outweigh the cons. Your flexibility is that much limited. So we've had good success with subscriptions because it's sort of transitioning from print to digital. So easy in circulation went through the roof initially during COVID. We had more numbers. Everything was going well. Obviously, advertising suffered. What you have to realize is in the print space, newspapers, it's 90% advertising driven. 10% circulation. In our case, it might be 20% circulation. So circulation number makes a difference, but even if I have higher eyeballs, it doesn't translate into revenue. The second is just like with online piracy of movies, right? The guy who's doing pirated movies is not your cinema watching audience. So the guy who's reading your magazine, he wants to read it in the best format, either in print or in digital format on Zenio, Maxter, something like that. Is very different from the guy who's reading PDFs on WhatsApp, because the scroll is not easy. You have to pinch and zoom. It's the user experience is very different. So you don't actually lose out on the traditional magazine reader or the paying magazine reader. Just like you don't lose out on the cinema goer if you have digital piracy with pirated prints. So our situation is similar. So we didn't really see, for us, it's a lot of new people sampling it, right? Sampling our magazine. And once they like the content, because for us, the bigger challenge is we cannot afford to advertise in Times of India or Malayalam Manorama telling them that there is a parenting magazine that we run, right? But with this boom, lot many more people came to know about our magazines, and we are a niche magazine publisher, a small publisher. So what it meant was more people became aware of our magazine, and many of them realized that, hey, this is good enough content and I can take a print subscription. So for us, it became a marketing tool to actually get new subscribers, either print or digital. So we've seen good success. The other one, which all of us in the magazine space have experimented doing our own e-zine apps, but it's never worked out because the consumer does not want to download your app, right? You're not a utility, you're not a all-in-one. So why would he would download a Paytm or a maybe a Netflix for a need, because it's serving a whole host of content needs. But getting, even for economists to get an app downloaded is extremely difficult. Secondly, open rates are a challenge, even if the app is downloaded. So it's all of us realize that, and the good thing about this space was this consolidation which happened, and you had strong kiosk players like Zenio, Maxter, Readly, Geo News coming into play, and they sort of became a one-stop shop. So you would choose one app and read your subscriptions. And there was evolution in that as well, because what happened was library model sort of came in. You paid a $10 fee and you could read unlimited magazines, right? You might not read unlimited, and nobody reads more than 10, but that choice gave you that power, and we saw our subscription revenues grow. Paywall, it's nice and glamorous to talk about it, and all content creators should put their content behind paywalls. But the technology is there. It's not too difficult. I could do it tomorrow. But the thing is, what is so compelling about your thing? Everybody is doing, everybody's going behind a paywall. But why would somebody want to pay 2, 3, 500,000 rupees to read your content per annum? Why would he do that? Because you're not only competing with other magazines and newspapers, you're competing with individual journalists who have their own Substack, who have their own newsletter. There are so many players who are out there asking that, trying to grab that rupee. It's very difficult to build a compelling offering. So the advantage we have as publishers who've been around is that you have the credibility which a newer player might not have. But the cost of putting that offering together, which needs to be beyond print. So it's not just about exclusive in-depth research stories, but it's also about bringing a lot of multimedia content into the play. Now, what that means is the cost outweighs the revenue that you can make in the foreseeable future, which sort of makes it a no-go immediately. So what have we done? As in, what have smaller publishers done in India and globally? We've done I'll give you two examples. One is in the technology space. There's a European publisher called Future Publishing, which has perfected this art. So they have really good content without paywall, where they have ad network serving, at premium, they're serving ads. They have their own sales team selling ads during launches, because you have so many more smartphone gadgets being launched all the time. So you get exclusive campaigns. Third is affiliate revenue. So you are actually giving contextual sponsored links from the top players in your country. And the third one is sponsored content, right? You can do really engaging, very high utility sponsored content through this, and they've actually been able to build a very sustainable business. They've been on an acquisition spree during the COVID period. So all that you need is good organic traffic, and it can be monetized effectively. And I see that transition not just in technology, but it could easily be done in women's magazine space, as in the magazine publishers could do it, lifestyle space, kids, parenting magazines. All of those can easily transition into this model. The other model which we've been using in the short term as automotive publishers is to do very engaging sponsored content with great storytelling. Technology and automotive space have been at the forefront of making this transition, and they were the first guys to spend more digital dollar versus print. And it's about print guys reorienting themselves. So we have the advantage we have is credibility. We have very good engaged readers. The third one is we have deep advertiser relationship. So we are leveraging that and generating engaging content, which sort of works, and that's been monetized adequately. This combined with trying to provide the much talked about 360-degree solutions, you become a one-stop shop for the advertiser, providing him a awards event, providing him a panel discussion, providing him other offline activities, which he would otherwise have to look at different players with. So we've used social media as the leveraging tool to sort of cement this relationship with the advertiser, and that sort of kept us afloat through this pandemic. What we need to realize is that Indian market is very, very price sensitive. So it's very difficult to make paywalls work in the short term, and you might not survive the short term to be around. So we need to take that into account. Data charges are really low. As I was telling my fellow panelists, that I spend more money on print newspapers. I subscribe to 4 newspapers than my mobile bill and my OTT bill put together. So that's how expensive print is. If you were to subscribe and read, imagine magazines are a lot more. A magazine subscription is 1,200 rupees a year. So it's disproportionately high compared to what's happening here. So it's going to be very, very tough for magazine publishers to reorient themselves, reskill. Please understand the journalist perspective, right? Most of us can't afford to have large teams, increase headcount. So the guy who was earlier doing print stories is now asked to do web stories. Is supposed to live tweet from a press event. He's supposed to then come back home, generate videos. So the strain on the editorial resources, and all of us are content creators. Even as publishers, you need to sort of step in and get things going. I'll give you one example. During this pandemic, I review for T3 as well. So I reviewed a shoe and I shared it on, I did a short video review of the shoe. And I said, hey, if you want to read a detailed review, I'll share a PDF of my review from the magazine, because I don't expect you to subscribe to the magazine. Twitter audience is not going to pay for anything, on their own. So I said, I'll DM you. You just let me know, and if you like it, you pay, okay, and pay whatever you want. And trust me, and I have reasonable credibility in the running and fitness space on Twitter. So I have a ready-made audience for that, and it was contextual. Trust me, it didn't reach double digits. And the revenue that, if I was trying to make a living, trying to do my own Substack, it wouldn't work. So my thing is, it's nice to talk about these fancy terms and, to do it, but to make a living out of it, either as an individual journalist or as an influencer, it's going to be very difficult, or as a publisher, it's going to be very difficult if you're reliant on subscriber revenue. So, that's about it. So over to you, Professor Yadav. I think there's some connectivity issue.
I think she also, yeah, she's back.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I think, I have connectivity issues. I'm sorry, I was actually trying to connect through the hotspot. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. So thank you very much, Girish. So we have few questions here. In fact, the first question is, how viable is this model of TV digital interactivity going to remain in the post-pandemic area? In the next 3 or 4 years. So Mr. Satish, you talked about that. So if you would like to take this question.
See, I don't see TV going out of business in the first place, nor is digital going to go out of business. So I think if you can bring in, innovate, and continue to engage with the audiences, there should be a purpose why they should engage with you and interactivity should come. As long as content creators and broadcasters like us are able to bring in the reason why they should engage and have an interactive play, consumers would come. If you keep doing what you're continuing to do and do not innovate or put a reason behind why they should come and do it, they wouldn't do it. Technology might change, something else might happen in about 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years down the line. I could just probably do something like this and start interacting. I don't probably need a device. So I guess it's about interactivity will stay. Why and how? Technology will probably take its own space and tell us how to do it. But I don't see why this should not survive.
Okay, so another, yeah, thank you so much. I'm extremely sorry. I mean, there's internet connection because I didn't, I couldn't listen to what you said, but I'm asking questions because, the students on the other hand, they might be listening. So there's another question, what skills must a student acquire to be ready for the digital future and generate revenue for the organization? Kindly suggest some resources we can use for this purpose. I mean, this is something which is coming from advertising and public relations students. And Kishan, since like you're a MICA student and working in advertising and PR space, so if you can take this question.
Is the question on getting ready to build a career? Okay. So I think the first qualification is that you need to be digital native, which I think already you are. So I think the first part is fairly easier, because I think what is happening is that there is a huge shift happening in the way advertising and media is behaving today, right? So the second is about how do you get the skill sets, right? There is a skill set that is required, and there is a technical know-how or a knowledge that is required. So the knowledge, I think, is no other shortcuts but to go and do courses around this, right? And it is not necessarily today you have to go to an esteemed college and do courses and things like that. But I think there are enough and more courses around some of the larger aspects of advertising and media, which is there, right? For example, how do you look at digital marketing? Within digital marketing, there are 3-4 areas in which how do you look at data-driven marketing or social as a piece and all of that. So that is one. The other skill set is about, which is a little bit of the right side of the brain, I would say, is about continuous observation of consumer behavior. I think that's fundamental to the industry. I don't think it is going to change. The advertising industry is built on consumer behavior, which is built on the observation of how people behave, culture, understanding, all of that. I think that is, for that, I would probably recommend you to be a keen observer of culture and human behavior, right? I think if you build that over a period of time, if you look at examples of how others have done it in terms of advertising or brand building and things like that, I think that should be a good. So there is a skill set that you can acquire by doing courses and things like that. There is a certain amount of inclination that you can build.
Thank you so much. And there's another question for you, Kishan. Like, what is the best way to approach the ad creation with respect?
Girish is saying something.
Girish is saying sorry. I'd like to chip in
Girish,
to that.
Please go
I'd
ahead.
like to chip in because what we expect while we're hiring talent is, first is you deep dive yourself. So become a content creator. So you should be, as in if I'm hiring you, you need to be multifaceted. So you should be able to write, you should be able to shoot videos, you should know the tricks of shooting videos. So watch reels, watch TikTok, experiment, do your own tricks. Know how to edit on your phone, shoot on your phone, make engaging content, as in, so be the creator that you expect others to do. So for example, I'm actually at my age, which is twice or maybe more than what people I hire, and it's very disturbing when I find that I'm able to do a lot more on social media than somebody whom I'm hiring. It's very disconcerting. Most of them want to do writing and they don't have a blog. I said, how many posts do you have? You have 2 posts. So I'm saying you write, you do those things. So whatever you're applying, it's just not good enough to say, hey, I've got 2 bylines during my project in Times of India and something. I said, what are you writing? What are your interests? Are you writing about it? Are you doing videos of it? So I'm saying you need to be a multimedia journalist today if you want to get into the writing or the journalism side, or you want to be a digital marketer where you take courses from Facebook, Google. There are dime a dozen certification courses which are available, or just go to Udemy or any of these edutech companies, find their highest rated courses, just do them. So I'm saying you need to show what you're doing, what you've done during your thing beyond your course. So I'm saying it's very easy now. It's all available online, and there are no excuses. So best of luck.
Again, I'm offline. Maybe if we put off our video, our internet might help.
Yeah, I think I'll just put off my video.
I'll also put off my video.
Satish, there is a question on, are OTT giants taking place of theatre as a mode of entertainment? Would want to take that?
Oh, okay. So that was there, right? Okay. So OTT films replacing theater. No, television didn't replace theater. The experience
Yeah.
improved. You didn't watch so many films when you went to watch films only in theater when we grew up. When TV came in, we started watching more content. So you didn't pay for it. You paid 100 rupees to watch 100 channels back then. You pay 200 rupees to watch 200 channels now. So you watch more films. OTT is enabling you to watch content across language, across culture, across various things. So you will watch more content, short films, etc., etc. But the experience of theater is never going to go away. TV didn't take away people from theater, nor is OTT going to take away people from theater. It'll survive, it'll do better, they will innovate, they will do bigger films, there'll be larger ones. A Minnal Murli that's hit some 10 million views or something like that for a trailer launch yesterday. A Malayalam film in 5 different languages by Netflix coming pre-Christmas is an example. So I guess people will watch. I would like to go and watch a James Bond film in a theater. I'd like to watch Mission Impossible in theater. I'm waiting for Marakkar Mohanlal to go and watch Ponniyin Selvan in Tamil in theater. You will watch more languages. You will experience content in different forms and languages. But I don't think theater is going to go away at all.
Yeah. Also, I think the number of theaters in India compared to the population is fairly lower.
Yeah, but nobody takes anybody away. Digital didn't take TV away. TV didn't take theater away. Print didn't lose because of TV. We all coexist. We are innovate. You have to constantly.
And we always had piracy, right? Isn't?
Yeah,
piracy. We had piracy, which was always there. So people still went to the theater when there was piracy. So piracy, satellite rights, and movies were always there. And this is just a new platform, new competition to the existing channels.
And we are a large country. So we have what, 8,000 screens, 7,000, 8,000 screens compared to our population. So we are still a long way to go. Like China has probably 30,000 screens or 50,000, I don't know, some weird number like that. So that itself is a long way to go. So I don't think.
How many big films of Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan and others have come out in the last few months or year on OTT? Not many. You're still waiting for the theater. How many big budget shows can really release on theater? No. There could be newer set of movies that people may make for especially OTT. That could be a new opportunity for content creators to look at and explore, but may never see theater. But that's a new avenue that's happening. But theater is here to stay. Will always be there to stay. That's my.
There's a question on ad creation with respect to the new guard. I'll probably take that.
Yeah,
I'll quickly take that. So like I said, the fundamentals doesn't change. Great advertising is always built on a human truth or a very powerful consumer insight. I think that doesn't change whether it's old guard or new guard. But I think the expression of it changes as the as the generation changes, right? So the way you tell stories earlier versus the way you are telling stories now is very different. I think that aspect is where it changes. For example, earlier you might use a little bit more romanticism, or you might use a little bit more inspiration and things like aspiration, not aspiration and things like that. Whereas today you probably need a little bit more realistic sort of storytelling people want. If you do over romanticizing or staying away from reality, then people probably will not take it. But otherwise, the fundamentals don't remain the same. That is what I would say.
I'll take the next question from Piyush. This is regarding regulations on, in India regarding social media, and what about OTT regulations? So I'll take the social media a bit. So ASCII's done a very good job, in my opinion, of bringing some guidelines in place for influencers. Media, I think, was always following it, mainstream guys, because we are used to, being responsible in that sense. But individual bloggers and content creators have been, passing off advertising content as editorial content. So the new guidelines are very helpful, but my feeling is that ASCII should go after brands and digital agencies to sort of ensure that these rules are adhered to, and not put the onus on the content creator, because they have very limited bargaining power. Having been on both sides of the equation, I feel that ASCII needs to focus its efforts on brands because they are fewer in numbers and easier to manage, and digital agencies to ensure that declarations are made regarding paid content. Regarding OTT, it's slightly controversial. So, I don't know what gets classified as OTT. What if they don't have a India entity? Will those platforms be banned, or those URLs be blocked, or they expect ISPs to block those URLs? So how will you enforce it? So I think self-regulation, whether it's social media or OTT, is the better way of doing things. I think in mainstream advertising, we've had a good thing going with ASCII guidelines being and sort of their decisions being respected by brands. So I think that sort of format should work, and we don't need legislation for this. Any other questions?
One more question is there on the quality of media.
Which is the one which
Quality?
The fears about media.
Along with the financial aspect of subscription and the concept of paywall, do you think there is an impact on content that is being provided to the audience in terms of quality, as there is a lot of apprehension about quality deterioration in the media landscape? That is the question.
It's a very large, broad statement saying, yeah, it's just like saying deterioration is subjective. I guess nobody will pay for anything unless they like it. Logically put, I might try once and unsubscribe if I don't like it. Right? Unless you give good content, quality content, nobody's going to buy. Be it a newspaper or a television channel, nobody's going to watch, consume, read, listen to any content that's not engaging, interesting to the audience you're trying to address. So I think that is something that all media creators or individuals who work on content always keep in mind and continue to do. Deterioration happens time to time, various resources, issues, challenges may result in deterioration. And that would mean that particular brand or individual or entity would obviously lose out on market shares and might even fold up. But I guess
another question on,
yeah.
Another question.
I also believe that every society deserves their content. So it's a reflection of what's happening outside. So I don't think it's.
Yeah, as in, I know, I think the popular question is trashing news television, saying that it's deteriorated. I think the question is coming from that. I think this was addressed in one of the previous panels as well. I think by Bikram Chandra, about how there is a need for likes of Editor G and Mojo and individual content creators like what Faye D'Souza is doing. So it's a good thing that there are these platforms and they're able to make things viable. But if you look at it from a monetization perspective, it's going to be very challenging for these individual shops to build, a business around it. There's only so much, because none of them are so far managing any subscription revenue. And as soon as you are dependent on advertising revenue, then there is conflict of interest. So news can be tricky to sustain the quality that you do it, because initially you're bootstrapped and you're funding it. So unless you have a trust fund or people who just want to promote, like the way Guardian does it or maybe BBC does it, where there is somebody funding it, it's very difficult to sustain news and be unbiased in that sense, or zero conflict of interest without public funding or some kind of trust fund funding.
I think news, as far as news is concerned, quality and credibility will survive. As long as you're today, especially in a digital world, how much of fake news that goes around. So quality and credibility are going to be very key factors of survival of news in any form. So there could be a large audience that, if that question was directed in terms of deterioration from a language news channel perspective, whichever language that it is, I guess it is right now maybe addressing an audience that is interested in watching that content. There could be another majority or a minority of audiences not engaged with that content. So they will move out and watch something else or consume in some other form. But finally, the credibility of content and the veracity of news would determine what you follow and how you consume that news content.
Just PR, one more point, what has happened, as in which is a fallout of social media, as in Facebook as well as news media, is that people slowly are not believing anything. So any point of view, so overall there is a trust deficit on any news that is generated by anybody, because there is right-wing promoted news, there's left-wing promoted news. So news, what it used to be, there is nothing can be sort of absolute fact as such in today's times. So that is another challenge which I think news media is grappling with, which is a much more complex issue because you sort of make everything